Her uncle traded her for a dying goat. Not for money, not for land, for a goat that could not even stand on its own legs. But that was not what broke her. What broke her was what he said about her mother. "You are just like her," he said. "That is why she died like a dog. I would rather have this goat than have you." She said nothing. She only touched the small necklace at her throat, the one thing her mother left her, and held on to the secret her mother whispered to her before her hand went cold. I am Mama Kuku, and this is the story of Nala. Watch closely, my friend, and let me show you how she shocked the world, even though she had nothing. The compound was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that comes before something bad. Nala was at the fire pit, blowing on the coals, same as every morning, for 8 years. Then she heard it, an engine straining up the path, an okada carrying something heavier than it should. She stood up slowly. A goat came into view first, thin, sick, tied across the back seat, its head knocking against the rider's back with every bump in the road. Her uncle Emeka came out of the house behind her, wiping his hands on his trousers, wearing the smile of a man who owes money he does not have. "Oga Obi, welcome, welcome, my friend." The trader did not smile back. "Emeka, 6 months now." I know, the harvest." "The harvest did not borrow my money." Nala stood by the fire pit, watching 2 men decide something. Neither of them once looked at her. Then Ogaobi's eyes found her. "That girl, your brother's daughter?" "Nala, yes." "She walks, cooks, cleans, fetches water before the sun is even awake. Then let her clear the debt." The firewood fell from Nala's hands. Neither man turned at the sound. For one small moment, one breath, no longer, Emeka looked at her, really looked at her, and something in her chest lifted just slightly, the way it lifts when you think, maybe this one time he will choose me. Maybe this one time he will choose me. He looked away first. "She's worth more than the money I owe you," he said to Ogaobi. "If I hand her over, I want the debt cleared and something besides." Ogaobi walked back to the bike, untied the goat. It stumbled onto shaking legs, coughing, half eyes shut. "This on top of the debt. That thing can barely stand. Then keep your debt instead. Either way, I am done waiting." Emeka looked at the goat for a long moment. Then finally, he looked at Nala. She lifted her chin. Her hand rose to the necklace at her throat, without her telling it to, waiting for him to say the one thing that would prove she was worth more than a dying animal. He did not say it. "Fine," he said. "Take her." "Uncle!" He would not look at her now. "Go and get your things." Nala hesitated, glancing toward the fence, as if running was still an option, but she knew she had no chance of making it. She went inside, wrapped her few belongings in a single cloth, and whispered to herself, "Mama, I am not crying. I am strong, as he said I should be." She was trembling, holding back the tears. When she came back out, she did not go straight to the bike. She walked to her uncle instead, stood in front of him, held the necklace in her fist so tightly it left a mark. "Uncle," she said, her voice trembling, "when the time comes, I will talk." Emeka's face changed, not with anger, with something older, something that reached back further than the trade, further than the debt, further than the morning itself. He did not ask what she meant. He just looked away. Nala turned from him and walked past the goat, past the animal that was now worth more in that yard than she had ever been, toward the okada. Ogaobi climbed on first. "Sit at the back. Hold on." She did not look back as the bike pulled away, leaving the goat standing in her uncle's yard, trembling, half blind, and hers no longer to think about. She had already learnt that, at 9 years old, holding her mother's cold hand. Looking back never once brought anyone with you. The okada rattled over the rough road, carrying only 2 people now. Nala sat at the back, her small bundle resting on her lap. The village grew smaller, until even the smoke from her uncle's cooking fire disappeared behind the hills. Ogalbi did not speak, neither did Nala. After a few minutes, he cleared his throat. "You don't have to be afraid." She looked at the road ahead. "I wasn't thinking about what you will do with me." "Then what are you thinking about?" She answered without looking at him. "Whether my uncle has already named the goat." Ogalbi caught her reflection in the small side mirror and frowned in surprise. "You should be angry. Anger won't bring me back." Silence settled between them again. Finally he asked, "What did you mean when you told him, 'When the time comes, I will talk'?" Nala's fingers closed around the necklace. "He knows." "Knows what?" "If I tell you now, it won't matter." "And when will it matter?" "When someone finally asks the right question." The sun was beginning to sink when the Okada turned off the main road, following a narrow path between maize fields until a modest compound came into view. Ogalbi switched off the engine. "We're here." A woman stepped out, wiping her hands on her wrapper. His wife, Ndidi. Her smile faded the moment she saw Nala. "Who is this?" "My debtor's niece. The debt is settled." Ndidi's eyes moved from Nala to her husband and back again. "You brought home a young woman to settle a debt?" He said nothing. "What have you done, Obi?" Still nothing. For the first time that day, he had no answer ready. Ndidi turned to Nala, her voice softening. "Come inside, wash and eat something." Nala followed in. But once they were alone, Ndidi's kindness dropped its guard and something sharper came through. "Listen to me carefully, because I will only say this once." She glanced toward the door. "Don't be deceived by his smiles. Whatever he tells you to do, you do it, especially where his business is concerned." "What business?" "You will find out soon enough." Ndidi's hand closed briefly around Nala's wrist. "But hear me, if you disobey him, if you fail him, he will take you somewhere no one will ever find you again." The room went quiet. Nala looked at this woman who had just fed her kindness and fear in the same breath, and understood she had walked into something far bigger than one dying goat. Ndidi's shoulders eased and her smile returned. "If you ever need anything, just ask me, all right?" Market day came. Nala carried sacks while Ogalbi called out prices, his voice loud and warm, a different man in public than the one who'd gone quiet under his wife's questions the night before. A customer stepped up. Simple clothes, tired eyes, the kind of man who counted his coins twice before spending them. "Half a bag," he said. Ogalbi weighed it out, wrapped it fast, handed it over with his smile, already moving to the next customer. The man frowned, hefting the bag in his hand. "This is light." "It's what the scale says." "I've bought from you before. This isn't the same weight." Ogalbi's smile didn't move, but his eyes hardened. "Are you calling me a thief in my own market?" The man held his ground. "My brother, I have nothing. This is the last of my money." He turned, and Nala's eyes landed on him. "My daughter, you work for him. Is this scale true or not?" Nala froze, the sack still in her arms. His eyes said more than his words. Ndidi's voice rose up in her memory, low and urgent. "Don't be deceived by his smiles. If you fail him, he will take you somewhere no one will ever find you again." Ogalbi did not look at her. He didn't need to. His silence was its own instruction. Nala looked at the man's tired eyes, at the coins he'd counted twice, at the bag in his hands that weighed less than what he'd paid for.
"No," she said. "It isn't true. The wait is short. He adjusts it for certain customers." The market seemed to go quiet around just the three of them. Ogalbi's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, not with half the square now watching. The man nodded slowly, took his money back from Ogalbi's stiff hand, and walked away without another word. Nala stood there, sack still in her arms, waiting for whatever came next. My friend, fear told her to stay quiet, but Nala had buried a mother already. She was not afraid of one more beating.
They walked home in silence. Ogalbi 3 steps ahead the whole way, his back rigid with a fury he hadn't let the market see. The moment the compound gate closed behind them, that fury found somewhere to go. "You shamed me in front of the whole market." He grabbed her, dragged her across the compound, went inside and came back with the cloth bundle she had brought, the few dresses she owned, all she'd carried from her uncle's house, and threw it into the cooking fire. "Obi, stop!" Didi ran from the doorway, grabbing at his arm. "She's just a child, please." He shook her off without even looking at her. His hand landed on Nala, and Didi screamed at him to stop, her voice cracking, useless against him. Nala prayed for her life as that hand found her again. Then, from the darkness beyond the gate, a voice. Obi. Just his name, nothing more. An old woman stood at the edge of the compound, a small kerosene lamp in her hand, her eyes fixed on him with a stillness that carried more weight than shouting ever could. Ogaobi's hand dropped. He looked at the old woman a moment longer. Then, without a word, he turned and walked into the house, the fire still eating what remained of Nala's dresses behind him. The old woman crossed the yard, knelt beside Nala, and helped her to her feet without asking permission first. "Come," she said, "away from here." Her name was Mama Chidima. Her hut sat just beyond the compound wall, small and warm, a fire already going when they arrived. She set a cup of water in Nala's hands and said nothing while Nala drank, the way you say nothing to someone who needs the silence more than the questions. Finally, Nala spoke. "Why did you help me?" "I had a daughter like you once," Mama Chidima said. "Where is she now?" The old woman was quiet a long moment. "Gone. I stayed in this place long enough to know how stories about young girls like you begin and how they end." Nala's hand found the necklace at her throat. "How will mine end, Grandma?" Mama Chidima finally turned to look at her, really look, the way almost no one had since her mother died. "You are not like any other girl, my daughter." She reached out and closed Nala's fingers gently around the necklace with her own. "You have a great story. Hold on to it." 3 men arrived at the shop the next morning. Simple robes, but the kind of bearing that made the market grow quieter as they passed through it. Behind the 2 who spoke stood a 3rd man, younger, dressed no differently from the others, holding a small book against his chest. He said nothing. He only watched the scale, the stall, and then, briefly, Nala herself before writing something down and falling still again. "We come on the king's order," the eldest said. "There have been reports of short waits in this district. We are inspecting every trader's scale." Ogaobi's smile came fast and practiced. "Of course, please." They weighed out a measure against their own stones, frowned, weighed it again. "This scale is short." "An old machine, nothing more," Ogaobi said. "Has it always weighed this way?" Ogaobi's eyes moved to Nala, still marked from the night before, one arm held slightly stiff at her side, and something in his face relaxed, confidence, not fear. He had settled that matter already, he believed, handled it the only way he knew. "Ask my servant here if you don't believe me," he said it almost lightly. "She'll tell you the scale is true." The men turned to her.
Her eyes moved past the two men questioning Oga Obi to the quiet one standing behind them, the one with the book, watching her the way no one usually did. Something about his stillness made the truth easier to say than the fear did. Nala's hand rose to the necklace at her throat, the way it always did now, without her asking it to. She thought of the fire eating her dresses, of Ndidi's scream useless against him, of Mama Chidima's hands closing around her own. You have a great story. Hold on to it. She looked at Oga Obi, who was already certain of her silence. No, she said, the scale is not true. He adjusts it. I have watched him do it many times, and last night he beat me for saying so in the market. The eldest of the three men's eyes moved slowly from her bruised arm to Oga Obi's face and stayed there. Oga Obi opened his mouth. Nothing came out that would help him.
The king's men walked on to the next stall, already talking amongst themselves, already forgetting the two people they'd left there standing. Oga Obi watched them go, then turned to Nala, his voice low, meant only for her. When we get home, he said, consider yourself a dead dog. Nala did not move or answer, but the words found something old in her, something she had buried since the morning of the trade, her uncle's voice saying almost the very same thing. You are just like your mother. That is why she died like a dog. 2 men, 2 houses, the same word aimed at her twice. Something in her simply left, quietly, the way strength sometimes does when it has been asked to hold too much for too long. She stood there, in the corner of the market stall, while the tears came down on their own, steady and silent, and the noise of the market went on around her, as if nothing in it had changed. My friend, Nala cried without a sound. She had done it before. She would do it again. The sun was going down fast. Nala watched it fall, and deep within her, something reached for her mother, the way it always did when there was nowhere else left to reach. The sun going down meant only one thing tonight, the end of her. Oga Obi did not say any more. He didn't need to. He only reminded her with his eyes, every time they passed, of exactly what waited once the light was gone. Nala lowered her head and prayed, quietly, the way her mother had taught her to do everything, without announcing it to the world. Mama, I have kept my promise. I always tell the truth. My neck still hurts from yesterday's beating, and I don't know what will happen tonight. The tears came without asking her permission and would not stop. A woman across the road looked at her and could not understand where such a great sadness could come from in a girl so young. But she looked away too, the way people in that market had learned to look away from things that were not their business. Just as Nala lowered her head fully, letting the last of the light go, her prayer was answered. The 2 men reached the stall just as the sun was going down. Oga Obi straightened at once, smile already rising into place, the same one he wore to every customer who hadn't yet caught him cheating. Gentlemen, is there something? Nala, the elder of the 2 said, not looking at him at all. Where is she? Nala lifted her head from where she'd been standing at corner of the stall, wiping her face quickly, as if she could hide from a king's men what half the market had already watched plainly. Here, she said. His eyes moved over her, the bruise still darkening along her jaw, the way she held one arm close and stiff, and something shifted in his face, though he said nothing about it yet. You are to come with us, now. Oga Obi stepped forward, his smile straining to hold its shape. She still has work to finish tonight. Whatever this concerns, surely it can wait until. It cannot. The man looked at him, just once, just long enough, and I would think carefully, trader, about how many more sentences you wish to finish in front of us. Oga Obi's mouth closed.
Nala did not wait to be asked twice. She had nothing to gather. The fire had taken most of what she owned the night before, so she touched her necklace once at her throat and stepped out from behind the stall. She did not look back at Ogaobi. She had learned a long time ago exactly what looking back was worth. The two men fell in beside her, and together they walked out of the market, the stalls closing up around them one by one as the evening finished swallowing the light. My friend, she did not know yet where they were taking her or why. She only knew somewhere quiet and certain inside her that her mother had heard her all along. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. "The king will reward you for your truthfulness." Her heart sank. "The king?" she asked. "Yes, the king." Nala swallowed and stayed silent the rest of the way to the palace. She was not excited. She knew one thing for certain. Her story had only just begun, and that palace would surely find something new to take from her, even though she had nothing left. She kept walking, holding her necklace, the only friend she had left.
Nala did not see the king that night. She was taken instead to a quiet room where an older woman cleaned the bruise along her jaw, wrapped her stiff arm gently, and said little beyond what was needed. "Rest," the woman told her. "The king will speak to you tomorrow after the ceremony." "What ceremony?" The woman only smiled, the way people smile when they've decided a thing is not theirs to explain. Nala lay on a mat softer than any she had known, one hand resting on the necklace at her throat, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she slept without listening for footsteps. By morning, the palace courtyard was full. Young women stood in rows, dressed in their finest wrappers and beads, each one hoping this would be the day the king finally looked her way. Whispers moved through the crowd. Who had been invited? Who hadn't? Who stood the best chance? Nala stood apart from them, still in the plain cloth she had arrived in, unnoticed among all that color and hope. Then the king's messenger stepped forward, and the crowd went silent at the wave of his hand. Then a name was called. Nala. The courtyard went still. Nala did not expect to hear her own name. She looked around for another Nala to step forward, but no one did. When she looked up, the messenger was pointing at her. "You, come to the king." She stepped forward, and every eye that had been searching for the king's favor turned instead to her, the girl in plain cloth, the one none of them recognized, the one who did not belong in that crowd of daughters dressed for exactly this moment. The king stood, and the whole courtyard rose with him. "Today is your lucky day," he said, his voice carried to every corner of that yard. "I went across this kingdom searching for one honest person. For months, I found only silence and smiling liars. Only one voice ever told me the truth, knowing exactly what it might cost her." He paused. "You are to be my queen, for you have proven that even in danger, you will stand by the truth." A gasp swept through the courtyard. Somewhere near the back, Emeka, her uncle, straightened, already rehearsing the speech forming in his mind, how he had always known deep down that his niece would rise to something greater, how he had never once truly doubted her. Nala did not move toward the throne. She looked at the king, calling her lucky, offering her a crown, the same way everyone before him had offered her away, without once asking what she wanted. And the words came pouring out of her like a river, overflowing after heavy rain. "Since my mother died," Nala said, "I have been sold for a goat and called a dead dog and treated like an article passed from one hand to the next." Her voice did not shake. "But I made a promise to my mother, and I have kept it. I will never let a man own my spirit."
She lifted her chin. I am Nala, daughter of the late Okeke and Chisom, and I am not an article to be taken, not by a trader, not by an uncle whose secret I hold in my chest, and definitely not by a king. Silence swallowed the courtyard whole. The king opened his mouth, but no words came out, and behind him the guard straightened, waiting for a command that had not yet come. Tell me in the comment section, if you were Nala, could you marry the king or stay true to yourself? Subscribe so you don't miss part 2, for the story has just started.